Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another chapter of Experiencer Interviews. And today we've got another amazing story coming to us from the US. We have Melissa Krieger on board today. Melissa was born in October of 1974 to young parents. Her birth parents met at Homestead Air Force Base while her father, James, was enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. Her grandfather was also enlisted during the 1940s in the U.S. Air Force and was awarded a patent and meager $500 sum for his invention of a hydraulic boom that would allow refueling planes midair overseas. After her parents' divorce, she was adopted by her father's first cousin and husband. Both became her legal parents. Her adoptive father was a career naval intelligence officer. Melissa remembers having self-awareness and consciousness at the age of 4 and being extremely empathetic, highly sensitive to energies of others, animals, nature, and people. She was interested in reincarnation, spirituality, dimensional realities, bizarre oddities, aliens, and UFOs as a young girl. She had her first sighting of a UFO when she was 16 and would later go on to experience 2 intense years of high strangeness, UFO sightings, synchronicities, and close encounter contacts with entities when she turned 33. Melissa has been a guest on Whitley Strieber's Dreamland podcast, The Experience, and her artwork has been featured in Kim Carlsberg's book, The Art of Close Encounters. So thank you so much for coming on, Melissa.
Thank you for having me.
Now we've talked about this briefly, but could you get into the what I thought was really fascinating is the bloodlines, your bloodlines in particular, that you on your mother's side and your father's side. Could you get into that before we start by
Sure.
talking about yourself?
I was my parents were very young when they met. I think my mom was 15 and my father was 21, and he was enlisted in the U.S. Air Force down in Homestead Air Force Base in Miami, Florida. And so when they met, my mom was not really of age. My mom's background is Spanish, Egyptian, North African, Portuguese, uh, indigenous Taino from the Caribbean. She's just a real big mix. Her grandfather was a merchant marine, and he immigrated to Puerto Rico in, I think, 1893, somewhere around there, before, this 1900, and met my great grandmother. And so that's how they came to be. And my father is of Scotch, Irish, English, German, and French background. And my dad's family is very Southern, uh, very country. And so that's sort of how I was raised. I was raised with my dad's family. And so I think that was like a huge part of just my culture and lifestyle, was being Southern.
Wow. Now, was the topic of ETs or UFOs back in the day something common in your household?
The interesting thing is that it was, because I was adopted after my parents divorced. I was adopted by my father's first cousin, who could not have children of her own. And her husband was enlisted in the Navy, and he was stationed in Hawaii, Honolulu, Hawaii, from 1966 to 1968. And he worked on underwater photography. His background was in geography and underwater photography. So he worked on submarines, on the island of Honolulu. Is it Honolulu? Kauai? I can't remember. I just know they lived in Honolulu on the base. And so, before they moved back to Florida, that's where they were. And then he went straight into the intelligence work when he got back to the States, to the mainland. So to answer your question in a long story, my father always had a lot of underwater photography photographs, and I would look at all these strange critters, and he would develop them in the dark room and bring them home. His black and white photography. And we would talk about various life forms. And I just remember probably, I was in elementary school, so we're skipping a little bit ahead. But I remember saying, well, there's no way, Dad, that, and this is my adoptive father, I'd have these conversations with, there's no way that there cannot be other life forms, because this universe is so vast, and you look at the sky at night and you see all the stars, and there's just no way that humans are it. So we would have these discussions, and I was always searching for meaning, for answers, for who we are, what we are, why we're here, how we became to be. And I just never stopped questioning or having really those discussions with my dad. And we would just sit in the living room and talk for hours. And I was interested in what happened to your soul. Like, how do you know you really die? Where does your body go? Where does your mind go? Where does your heart and soul go? And so for me, that was a really important thing to understand, to try and understand. And I think, based on the timeline, as I'm looking back, I think I was around 8 to 10 when I was having those really deep conversations with my father.
So what happened to you at the age of 4? So is that when your sort of awakening started to happen?
Well, I think I've heard you ask people, like, well, when was your first experience or encounter? And I don't have a first experience or encounter that I remember with the Greys or with UFOs or ETs. My first conscious experience or awakening was it was a summer day. I think it was 1977. I was 3 or 4. My parents had just had their home built, our home built. And so we had a backyard that barely had grass. And I remember my parents were always running the sprinklers to try and get the sod and, the grass to grow. And we were out there in our bathing suits on a hot summer day, just in the sprinkler, my sister and I, because my sister and I both were adopted at the same time, my biological sister. And I just remember watching my sister jump through this stream of water. And I would just look at her, and I would just ask myself, is she self-aware? Does she know who she is? Does she think about her mind? And I looked at my hands and I said, whose hands are these? I am not these hands. And whose fat little body? I mean, I was so chubby as a kid. I hated my body. I was very self-aware of my physical body. And I said, whose body is this? I am not this body. Who's thinking this? Who's talking? Who's asking these questions? I mean, it just kept getting deeper and deeper. And I felt so, I mean, in a way I sort of felt strange, but in a way I knew that I was special, because my sister and I weren't having, these conversations. That was my first clue that something was going on with me. Around 8, I was in 2nd grade, and this was second and third, 83, 84, those 2 years. They were the worst years for me of my childhood, besides like middle school, which is usually really hard for everybody. I was having something that I didn't understand. I was having reoccurring dreams of this huge wave of, water, ocean tidal wave. And I would see it rising higher and higher. In fact, I had a dream last night, I think because I knew I was going to be talking with you. But I had these reoccurring dreams of tsunamis, and I didn't know that they were called tsunamis because we hadn't learned in science or class in 3rd or 4th grade. I hadn't learned about weather and all of that stuff, that social science stuff. I didn't know what they were called. I just know I kept having these devastating dreams of this wave just overtaking me, my home, the land, everything. And I would wake up thinking I was drowning. And I don't know. And I was like, why am I having these dreams? I don't know. So that started first. And then I'll jump ahead for one moment and then jump back to where we are right now. At that same time as the dreams, the nightmares of the tsunamis, I had a dream that I was looking at the earth from outer space. In other words, I could see the earth and I could see the stars all around it. And in this dream, I realized that oh my gosh, I'm looking at the earth. I'm not on the earth. I'm viewing the whole sphere, our planet. Where the hell am I? And all I could think of was immediate fear, like, how the hell am I going to get home? Where am I? No, seriously, I was, absolutely freaked out. Like, I'm off the earth. And then the next memory I have is of seeing the earth images. Beautiful. It was almost like a movie where I saw the earth, the seas, the mountains, flowers, just all aspects of the different various, geographical locations of our planet, just waterfalls, you name it, anything iconic, of our earth. I was seeing it in this vivid, explosive, bright, beautiful colors, so vibrant. It was like I could taste them. It was so intense. And the colors were, I couldn't even describe it. They were just so beautiful. And the feeling was, this is our earth. This is the real earth. This is our earth. And don't you appreciate it? These were sort of the thoughts that I'm thinking, or that are coming to me as I'm seeing these images. And then the very next thing I know, I am standing below a gray who was taller than me, and nobody has ever asked me how tall. And so I'll just go ahead and say, if I was probably 4'8" at the time, because I wasn't even in middle school, I would say this being would have to have been about 6 feet tall, because I do remember looking up. This gray was telling me, I think, kind of leaning down in my face, and I don't remember being in fear at all of this being, but telling me with just very impassioned, concern, listen, you've got to, oh, well, I guess I should back up. And I didn't say this correctly. After the images of the beautiful earth, I'm back looking at the earth. And I think I've messed this all up because I probably messed up the time. What happened was, after these images of the earth, I'm looking at the sphere again, and I see the earth start smoking. I see fires and lava spewing out into space. I see the earth start rapidly spinning and getting faster and faster and faster. And all of a sudden it's like a blur, and then it stops. And then it's, wobbles and goes back the other way. And then I don't remember what happened, if it imploded, if it, exploded. I just know I was mortified, because then I really knew I wasn't going home. And so I apologize, but the next thing was when the gray was leaning down and talking to me and said, you have to save your earth. You've got to do something. You're destroying your planet. You've got to make people stop, destroying the earth. You've got to talk to your president. You need to do something about it. And I said, I'm just a little girl. I don't have any power. I felt overwhelmed beyond words. It was like the biggest guilt I could imagine, because yes, I saw what was happening. Yes, I saw and I loved the earth ever since I was a little girl, too much. Um, and I really didn't know how in the heck I could make a difference to prevent this from happening.
I always ask myself, why don't they go directly to the president instead of, using a middleman?
It felt so dumb. It felt like, and even then, I mean, because I was starting to ask my parents about taxes and who owns the world and who's in control and who lets all this bad stuff happen. And I would see footage of like nuclear, around this time, this is a huge component. I had, with the reoccurring dreams of the tsunamis, I was terrified of a nuclear explosion and warfare. That's all I could think of. And it wasn't people that I was upset about. I was so sad and devastated because I felt like it was going to happen. And I cared about this earth and I cared about the animals. I didn't give two shits, excuse my French, about people. I didn't really even think of myself. I was just the earth and the animals.
Yeah, they tend to be the first to suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, do you think would that timeline be somewhere in the future, like close to what we're living now? It's
I
because I do
don't
tend to interview a lot of people. They've got these sort of apocalyptic visions given to them by the Greys, but again, we never get a clear timeline.
I felt like we were on track to be there. And one feeling, if I go back to, being 3 or 4 and asking, where am I? Who is this soul inside this body, this avatar, whatever it is? I felt like I was always here to witness the end. I felt like I was here to see the stupidity of mankind destroy this magnificent biosphere. And it's a very negative place to be. It's sort of like been my whole, belief. I don't know what caused that, but there's just a great sense of fear that it's happening because I just see so many. I see a lot of great humans, and trust me, a lot of wonderful angels on earth, but there's just so much apathy and so much disregard to our actions on a day, moment to moment basis. And there's just so many of us that, yeah, and that made me say when I was a very young girl, there's no way I want to have a child because there's just too many people on this planet that don't care about it. As a
Yeah,
kid, I was saying that,
imagine that.
yeah.
So, did that? Did you ever see that particular Grey after that, or was it that
I
one-time thing?
I think that was the only time. I mean, I have seen other, but I don't think it was the same one. It could have been, but like I said, um I don't think so. I think that was a one-time thing. And like I said, the pictures I'll never forget, just because of the beauty and the surreal, just vividness and pure. It was just, everything was untainted. It was really like being on another world that hasn't been damaged by, humans.
So, do you believe you were out of body? But did you see your hands? Were you aware that you were in a body, or
No, and what I need to say is that that dream, it was a dream that I had around the age of, 8 to 10. So we're talking 1983, 1984, 1982. I did not remember that dream, and until I started get until 2008, when all of this stuff just started happening to me in full force. And I was trying to put the pieces together of what was happening, why it was happening. Uh, and then I was like, oh my gosh. And all the memories of talking about ETs. Okay, let's just get this straight. I was a little girl. I was into Barbies. I was into boys. I always had diaries. I was into animals, stickers, clothes. I was not into Star Trek. I was not into sci-fi. But for some strange reason, I would stare at the stars and look at this earth and weep.
Imagine that. Yeah.
And animals, I feel them. I have always felt them. And so I was really sensitive, but for some strange reason, I would stand out in my driveway at night and I would look at the stars and I would say, are you there? Do you hear me? Please come and take me. I don't want to be on this earth anymore. People are so messed up, just please come and take me. Just take me for a ride. You can bring me back. Just come and get me.
Yeah.
And so that was really strange because where did that come from?
It's as if a part of you knew somehow.
I think so.
But you're from somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was the 80s, if we're going on a timeline. And then my life was very quiet until the Portal book came into it. And that would be Whitley Strieber's Communion. And how this came to be in my life was that my father, the naval intelligence officer, the one that I had all these really deep, profound spiritual discussions with, he was reading Whitley Strieber's Communion. So it was about 1991. I was in high school. And he had that book with the gray alien face on the coffee table. And I would walk by the living room, back down the hall to my bedroom. And I would see that damn face and I would say, my God, what is that hideous thing? And I would go over and I would turn it over because it was so creepy. And then another day, the next day, I'd walk by again, it would be face up. And I got mad and I was like, turn it over, put it down. Well, the third day that this happened, it may not have been the next day, but it was, around that time because took him a little while to read it. I saw it facing up again. And I'm like, I'm just going to go over here and find out what the heck this thing is. And so I pick up the book and I'm like, So I put it in my room because I said, well, it's not very big. There's only a couple hundred pages. I think maybe 400. I can't remember. I'll read it. I want to see what this is. So intriguing. This thing is just like, I read it in like a night and a half. And I instantly felt like I knew Whitley. I felt such an outpouring of just love and connection. I just wanted to wrap him in my arm. I mean, I'm a kid, and I just wanted to wrap my arms around him and just tell him I believed him. I felt, like all of this was real. And I even wrote a letter to him, a handwritten letter. And I still have it. I never sent it away. And so 2 weeks after finishing that book, I was outside on my front porch. It was a beautiful star-filled night. And I was sitting out there just thinking about, how miserable my life was as a teenager. And all of a sudden I see this green light in the sky. And I'm like, that's a strange color for a helicopter. And it starts coming closer to my vision. And I'm listening, but I'm not hearing any sound. And I'm like, okay, any minute it'll be okay. It must not be a plane. It's probably a helicopter. But it got right in front of me up in the sky. It wasn't really close. I don't even know how it was tiny. I mean, it looked tiny. It wasn't tiny, but you could see it. And I didn't hear any sound. And I'm staring at this thing. And it was a solid, beautiful green color. stood in a stationary position. I'm staring at it. There's no sound. And then all of a sudden it goes whoop, and it moves up really fast. And I'm like, what? And then it goes boop, and then it goes like a figure eight. And I'm like, oh my God, it's a holy shit, it's a UFO. And I'm freaked out now. And I swear to God, this was only a couple of seconds. It was probably less than 30 seconds. I mean, it had to have been under a minute, this whole experience, right? But if I slow this down and describe to you that I felt this green star, I felt it looking at me. I felt it feeling me look at it. I felt it feeling everything in my heart and my soul. It was almost like a family member that knows you really well, that can read your face when you're upset. Because as soon as I started getting freaked out, I felt it go, oh, sorry. And then it just took off in the sky. It felt me afraid. And it was being kind to me. It was showing me, okay, let me back off, and it just zipped off. Well, next thing I know, I'm running down the street, screaming at it. No, I'm sorry. I just got scared. Come back. Please come back. I don't remember much. All I know is I went back in the house and I said, oh my God, Mom, Dad, I think I just saw a UFO. And my dad's like, well, you probably did. My father and I talked about UFOs. This wasn't something that was a off subject or something that was made fun of. My mom was terrified of anything that was outside of the Christian religion, my adoptive mom. But my father and I were having, all these conversations about spirituality and whatnot. So it wasn't unheard of. And I wasn't poo-pooed about this at all.
A thought just came to me. How different your life would have been if you would have been raised by your biological parents?
Oh, that would have been a bad one. I don't, my father had addiction problems. And so that was the main reason why we were not raised by him. And his cousin and he were very close, my adoptive mother. And she basically offered him, sort of a mercy, a grace, card, just saying, you got to get your life together. And let me take care of these girls. I can give them a good life. And he did. And so I don't know that it would have worked out at all. I don't know that I would have been alive. Let's just put it that way. I really do think everything, and I hate to say that because there are children in, slums in Calcutta and in Somalia and everywhere else. You can't say that everything is a pre-planned, but I got freaking lucky. I really did. And I do feel like every step along the way, I had some sort of divine intervention and some sort of protection to keep me safe, because there were many instances in my life where, and I'm sure many of us, regardless, I should have been dead. I should have been my time.
Well, I do get the feeling that at least a part of it was really to help you awaken. So they moved you from one family to another, and it's as if you've got this mission, perhaps again, to talk. What you're doing right now is perhaps a part of it. So your whole awakening process, your spiritual involvement, was probably more better off being with your new parents.
There was a lot of strange things that happened in my home. It was a new home. It wasn't an old home. But one of the things I know kind of that overlaps is paranormal activity. And when I was a young girl, I would say it's probably around the same age, 9, 10, definitely before high school. So it was anywhere in that middle school, late elementary age. I don't really remember what year. I was in my bedroom one afternoon, and I think I was reading a book or doing stickers or something, and all of a sudden my bed just started shaking. And I was like, what? There's got to be something coming by. There's something underground. There's something overhead, like a plane or something. It was shaking so hard. It was like this. And I leaped off my bed and I ran down the hallway where my dad was on the couch in the living room reading a newspaper. And I said, Dad, do you feel that shaking? And he's like, what? No, there's nothing going on. And I'm like, and I run to my sister's room, and she hated me at the time because that's what older sisters do. They hate their younger siblings. What? Leave me alone. I'm like, is your room shaking? Is your bed shaking? Do you feel that shake? She's like, what the heck are you talking about, weirdo? And I don't know what it was, but I have asked other people, and I know other experiencers. There have been some that have said that has happened to them, and that was the only object in the house. Now, what was interesting was I was into aliens and spirituality, but my sister was into ghosts, and she had something that was messing big time with her. She had some sort of spirit or energy or ghost that kept turning on and off her lights. And she thought it was me. She would say, Lisa, my nickname, stop messing with my lights. Why do you keep turning? I'm like, I said, Michelle, I didn't touch your light. And then the door would open and close. And she'd say, why did you close my door? And I said, I didn't. I've been out in the kitchen. I haven't even been back in your room. She always thought it was me messing with her. So we had some strange things in that household, but I just felt like at that age that I was really emotional, and I was a highly sensitive person, very empathetic. I didn't want to fish, I didn't want to put a worm on a hook. I could just feel the pain. I felt the suffering. I didn't really know anything about factory farming. That would come later on in life, and animals. But for me, I was just always very sensitive to animal suffering, dogs, animals out in the wild, not having, shelter or warmth, things like that. And it would keep me up at night.
Wow. So all this happened when you were a teen?
Not the bed, not the sort of the shaking, but my whole life, I was deemed sort of a crybaby because I could just get upset really easily. I could feel I could empathize with those around me and with those that don't speak, animals and nature. Like I would see, this is weird, I would see fires. People have bonfires, and all I could think about was the trees burning.
Oh, so cute.
I was just a mess. I was like, don't burn the trees, don't burn a piece of paper. Everything seems so violent to me on Earth. I don't know why. It just, really sensitive. When I left home, I was 18. I'm kind of looking through my notes here. It was really hard for me to be out on my own. I had just been in my first relationship during high school with my first boyfriend, and we broke up. And so I was out on my own, living life as a adult, and then I was doing it alone. So it was a very lonely time. I had a dog. I have a picture of him. It's I got him when I was 16. He's wearing the little bow, Christmas puppy. He was a Cocker Pekingese type dog. Anyways, he was my guardian angel. I do know that now. But when I moved out at 18, I threw myself into working, going to school, like 2-3 jobs, going to community college, trying to do the adult thing. But there was something, and I was really into working out. I would work out 2 hours a day, 7 days a week. I was just beating myself up in the gym, as some people would say, like, go home, you're here all the time. I just threw sort of myself into working out because I felt out of control and scared of being alone in my apartment. And what was happening at night was I was exhausted at the end of my long day from going to school, 2 jobs, working out, taking care of my little puppy, and not a puppy, but dog. But then I was so nervous and anxious at night. And it was a fear, and I didn't know what it was, but it was anxiety. I couldn't turn off the brain. And then the weirdest thing was that every night it seemed like there were these lights shining in my bedroom window, and my head was my bed was like right here, so the bedroom window would have been like right here. And I was always thinking, like, I know my neighbor across the street, because they were duplexes that faced each other. I knew when he came home, he didn't have a night shift job, really nice guy. I never understood why these lights, what they were. And they would happen every night. They would just flood my room. And I'm like, why is he shining the lights in my bedroom again? It was just a very strange thing. And I wonder, what that was. And I was so distraught that I ended up needing to ask a doctor for like anxiety medication and sleeping pills, because I couldn't I didn't feel safe sleeping. I just couldn't shut down. So that was 94, and I'll fast forward to about 97, 98. I was in another relationship with a different person. It was a very volatile, a very bad relationship. It was not good at all. Anyways, I had moved down to a different part of town, and his house that I was living in was situated on a little cypress pond, or a little swamp lake. And I don't know what occurred to make me fear this, but I was afraid that there was something on the other side, or in the pond, or in the woods, on the wood line of this pond, that was coming to get me. And then at that point, I had this knowing that they were grays. And so I would drink a bottle of wine. I was 21 by this time. I would drink a bottle of wine a night by myself and stay up to about 3 or 4 and make it to work at 8, just because I was afraid to go to sleep. I was afraid, and the wine took the edge off, and it was horrible. I mean, I was already in a bad relationship with this guy. I felt like, that movie Sleeping with the Enemy, where you've got someone that's obsessive and abusive to you. And then but I was more worried. I was more worried about them coming to get me. So I met my husband, would be my first husband. And I moved out. And that was in 98. I got engaged. I had a wonderful couple of years. Absolutely nothing happened. It was the quietest period of my life. Things were good. Life was good. I was in a great relationship with a wonderful man, who would go on. We'd marry in the year 2000, and we'd go on to have our son in 2004. And I was 30 years old. I was 29 when I had him, and I turned 30 just a few months after he was born. So I was sort of a late mom. And things were relatively quiet. There was a lot of issues the first couple years of my son's life. He was delayed in talking, and he spoke in a language of his own. And he would make street signs at a very early age. He would build stuff. He would collect trains and cars, and he knew the names. And in fact, it's so weird. I almost forgot to say, his first word was not mama. He never called me mama. It was, I was walking him in the stroller, and he pointed up and he said moon. And that was his very first word to me, which was a shock. But he had been diagnosed with autism. And in 2004, I didn't know, or actually Asperger's autism, high functioning autism. But first child, first time being a mom, I have no idea what this world is and what the future looks like for my child, who was very much planned and very much wanted. So I threw myself into therapies. I mean, it was physical therapy, speech therapy, sensory integration therapy, because I was told that the earlier, you work with children, he had hand, dexterity issues, the better it is for them. And it really helps them along the way. So luckily I had the resources here to do that. So what I'm trying to say is about 2008, he's like 4, and I'm heavy into this. It's the predominant thing in my life. It's like therapy, 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 rest, sleep, therapy, therapy, therapy. I wasn't thinking about anything other than my son. It was the summer, July of 2008. And I had a dream. And the dream was really what started it all. In the dream, it was daytime in this dream, and I was on my driveway, and I was at the mailbox checking the mail, and my son, who was 4 at the time in real life, in the dream, he was riding his tricycle, which it was very realistic. So he's riding the tricycle up and down the driveway while I go to the mailbox at the end of the street. And all of a sudden I look up and I see a formation of UFOs, and they were like red lights, and there was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There was like 7 lights. They were in a V formation in the sky. So this is in my dream, right? And I look at them and I'm like, oh my God, Jared, and that's my son's name, run into the house, go get inside the house. And he pedals really fast on his tricycle and gets into the house, goes in through the garage. And as soon as I start trying to run myself to get inside, because I'm thinking I can avoid them, they start levitating me up off of the driveway. And I'm mad as hell. I'm like, in the dream, I'm like, like, screw you. I do not belong with me. You're not going to take me. And I'm like, I belong in this earth. And I said to them, this sounds so corny, my feet are firmly rooted in this earth. I don't know what that means, but it was, it's what I said. And then they do this thing where they kind of like hula hoop me and kind of gyrate me around, like flexing their muscle. And then they slowly lower me down. And then in the dream, I'm shuffling my feet, not lifting an inch off, because if I do, I'm going to be sucked up to the ships. I wake up from this dream in July of 2008, shell-shocked. Brain completely melted. Face melt, brain melt, psyche melt, just, I call it the mind fuck. And basically it just felt like my world was cracked and broken, because this just came out of left field. And I'm busy with my son, I've got so much stress and so much worry about him that I'm not thinking about anything. So I told my friend, and she's a wonderful psychologist, wonderful woman, dearest friend. I can't tell you how much she saved me during this time. I called her up because she was very spiritual, and she was the only person. Actually, I don't even think I called her up. She called me that morning after the dream, and she's like, oh my God, are you okay? And she didn't even see my face. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I had a really messed up dream. And she's like, come talk to me about it. So I drove over to her house and I told her all about it. And just very calmly, she's like, Melissa, you're having an awakening. Here's some books that you need to read. Zachariah Sitchin, blah, blah. Nibiru. They've been in my life since I was 11. they've told me that my job is to assist humans up into the ships when they come. And I'm like, oh, her name, why didn't you ever tell me this? She says, well, it never came up. And it's still, it just, I could not believe that she was so like matter of fact and chill. And I was just like, because I hadn't told my husband. And so that was really nice. So it was an absolute shit show. Okay. I'm just going to say it was not a fun period in my life at all. The very next thing that happened was it was July of 2008 was a wet summer where I live. It rained torrential. It was like, what is the word? The cyclone. I don't know. It rained every day. And I went to the library with my son to get some books. I was really into art history, going to the library then. So I wanted to check out a whole bunch of books, just get out of the house. So I go to the art history section and I'm looking along the shelf that's about eye level when all of a sudden a book falls out. And I look down because it almost hit my foot, and I pick it up and I look at it and it says The Secret School by Whitley Strieber. And I'm like, what? Oh, I didn't know he wrote, because I had read back in the day, after I read communion, I went on to read like confirmation, the communion letters, transformation, but I never knew that he made this book, which is like a prequel to his, it was like his early childhood. So I'm like, oh my God, this just like is in the wrong section. It fell out of my foot. Of course I'm taking it. It's Whitley. So I checked it out, got home, and I started reading it. And I don't know what happened other than to say I was so uneasy. I felt I would be sitting in my living room, comfortable as can be with tea and everything. I felt like something was in the room watching me up from like in the ceiling. I felt like something was there. I felt a presence that was so foreboding and so dense and just scary. And I was like, okay, I guess I can't read that. This was the only book of Whitley's that I could not read. Now, I didn't read his fiction books. I've never read The Hunger, The Wolf, and I would like to. I just haven't. I was into his, true encounter books, his autobiography stuff. So I put the book down because I couldn't finish it. And that's about the time things started kicking into high gear. This dream that I had where this craft was trying to abduct me into the sky, into this formation, these crafts, it really broke my spirit. It pulled me out of bed like a monster and never returned me. That's how I felt. Like that moment was when things changed. And then it's like things just kept getting worse. So I take this book of this beloved author of mine. I loved Whitley since I was a kid. And here I am, like 33, and I can't even read his book that I want to read. I started getting fearful. I started feeling that presence that I would feel watching me when I was reading this book. I felt this presence in my home, in my living room, especially in my bedroom. And I became so afraid. And my sleeping situation was that, it was my bedroom. I had a king size bed. My husband slept on one side and I slept in the middle. And then my son slept on the outside. And so we, co-slept. And I was so afraid that I had to have the lights on. Like I wanted the bedroom light on while I slept. I had to have the bedroom light on, the kitchen light on, the hallway light on, the night light on. I mean, like, all lights needed to be on. And I didn't know why, but I felt completely haunted, hunted and haunted. My life was in danger and I did not feel safe sleeping. And it wasn't for a human. It was not of a burglar. It was some energy that I couldn't put a name or face to. I never really thought alien. I thought demon. I thought demonic. I was trying to say, okay, is this perhaps like some kind of past life karmic debt? Like, did I freaking kill someone in a previous life and like they're just now coming to, get theirs? Like, I was just bewildered. Because what would happen is the power would shut off in my house. And then it would come back on. The radio, we had a stereo, it's called an Iowa stereo, and it had like a 3D disc changer. It had 2 tape decks and this really cool, like dial, and it had all the little the LED window, where you could see all the bass and the treble, and it would sort of move with the music and the sound. And then 2 big speakers. Well, that sucker would turn on by itself in the middle of the night, blasting. I would be asleep, okay? And that sucker would come on, blasting, and then the power would go out and come back on. I did not know what the hell was going on. I asked my wonderful neighbors, they're a beautiful, wonderful couple that had been married for like 30 years, did you guys lose power last night? Have your power been going off? No. I asked the other neighbor. The other neighbor at that time was a sheriff's deputy. And so I had to really watch, kind of how I worded things, because I really didn't want this guy to think I was a freaking nutbag. But I was like, do y'all have any power shortages or anything? And they're like, no. And then my neighbor across the street, where the orange orb was over, and I'll get to that later, she never had power outages. So power would go out. We lost appliances that year in 2008 fall. We lost the washer. We lost the computer. We lost the dishwasher. I could not wear a watch. I had a really beautiful Skagen watch that my husband bought me as an anniversary gift. It was brand new battery. Would go dead within like an hour or so. I went to Radio Shack. At the time we had the Radio Shack. I would get them to put in a new battery. I would buy one. Same thing. It would drain and just stop working. I took the watch to a watchmaker. There was nothing wrong with the watch. I just started seeing the time prompts during this time. It was 111, 222, 333, 444, 555. I hated 222 through 444. It was the creepiest hours for me. I felt that was the worst. Even when I had these lights on in the hallway and in the bathroom, my husband would be asleep. My son would be asleep next to me. One night, I'm looking up and I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with me? Why am I so afraid? When I started seeing a shadow, and then I saw another one, and then I saw another one. And these shadows were defined blobs. I want to say they were like this sort of shape. I think I have drawn a picture of it, but these shadows were at the top of my bedroom ceiling, and they were whipping around the top of the ceiling in a frenzy. It made me think of sharks feeding. You know how sharks get into frenzy and they're all just like, and I'm sure they were frenzy feeding off of the fear, because I was terrified. I was shaking. I would wake up in a pool of water, and it was sweat. It was fear. I remember during that time, I would scream for my husband to wake up and help me, and he did not hear me. I remember feeling vibration. I remember hearing what I thought was a freaking helicopter over the top of my bedroom. And for some reason, I couldn't open my eyes, and I'm working through this and saying, why would a helicopter be hovering right over my bedroom ceiling, over the house, that low? Because it was like this, it was so, I could feel it. I could feel, and at the same time, I almost felt like I was getting electroshock. It was vibration, it was fear, it was in and out sort of the whole awareness. It was hearing this chopper sound above the house. It was seeing these things. It was screaming for my husband, begging for him. I mean, I was just yelling. All I remember is just screaming his name like the worst horror flick you've ever seen and heard. And he just never woke up. He just never could help me. And
Sounds like a UFO.
it was horrible. It was horrible. It was very, very traumatic.
Okay. So yeah, the hum there,
Is
sounds
that
like
what they do?
yeah, sounds like a UFO. I've heard people describe something similar to that effect.
Well, basically, it was a very tumultuous time because I was telling my husband that I felt like something was going on, and I'd ask him, "Did you hear that?" And he never questioned. Like, he never, and he's a very rational person. I mean, I was so emotional, and he's very rational. We're really different people. He would never question why our house was losing power, but none of our neighbors were. Like, it never occurred for him. And he's a very inquisitive guy. He could be like a private investigator. He can put together clues really fast. He's very smart, but he never questioned it. And then I would say, well, I think something is happening. I think there's something like demonic or something. He's like, you're just exhausted from all the stuff going on with our son. You know, you're probably having a nervous breakdown. And he suggested that when ET came at the door asking for fuel for his spaceship, that I come and wake him up. He said that when they're there for the anal probe, making reference to Whitley, that maybe he would believe me, or that if I could get a picture of it, other than that, maybe I needed to go get evaluated for hypnagogia and some other type of mental disorder where you're just hallucinating. He really thought I was hallucinating and making this all up. And so, needless to say, I didn't have, other than my wonderful friend who was going through her own stuff. We actually had sons that were the same age. They were sort of raised together. She had a lot of stuff going on, so I really couldn't bombard her with things. So what happened is, this was 2008, and we now moved into July. In October, my son and I were driving to the grocery store, and as we left one evening, it was about 6 o'clock. I'm looking over the steering wheel up in the sky, the pretty sunset, all the colors, and I see this big white flat disc, and I'm like, son, do you see that? And he's like, what, mommy? And he leans out of his car seat, because he was like 4, but he was really smart. He's like, yeah, I see that, mom. What is that? And I'm like, I don't know. It's like a weird plane. I don't know. And it was a UFO. It looked like a dinner plate. So I have drawn that for you with a reference with some others. So that was the first sighting that I had. And this, again, was happening in that fall month. So between July of 2008 and October. So that's a couple months, 4 months. So that month was really hard. I had this experience, and I've made reference to them with other people. I've shared this. To me, it was like a test. It was a Trinity because I was still experiencing these time prompts, and I was trying to understand if it was some sort of language, if it was some sort of communication, if it meant something, because it kept happening all the time. It's like I could not look at the clock or the microwave, or it's always digital numbers, so you're not really seeing 1111 on a dial watch. You're seeing it on the microwave, or your alarm clock. Always a time prompt. It's like it never was any other time but the 111, 222, 1111, 1212, 1010. To me, it had to mean something, because I had never experienced that or seen that in my life. And why now, with all this other weird shit happening? So this Trinity dream started out where one night I had a dream that I was walking in sort of a bad side of town where I live, not safe for a woman to be walking alone. And as I'm going underneath this bridge, I look up to my left on the side of a wall, and I see 3 deer hanging in nooses up high, and they were all alive, and they were fighting for their lives. They were pawing and clawing in their hooves. They were thrashing, trying to get their necks out of the noose. And the one that was close, the 2 that were farther away, they managed to get free. They kicked their hooves against the wall, and somehow they loosened their nooses and they ran off in this dream. But the one that was closest to me couldn't. And in this dream, the next thing I know is I just see black. I just see this one deer that's stuck, his eyes, and I'm drowning in his eyes. It was a male deer. And I'm drowning in his pain, and he's feeling every pore, every ounce, every cell of me. And it was like I was exposed for every flaw, every shortcoming, every mistake and dishonorable or disgusting, human trait that I have done was all there. And the telepathic message that I got was, save me. Are you going to save me? Or are you just going to stand there? Oh, so you're one of those. You're not going to do anything. You're not going to save me. And then I woke up. So that was really upsetting, because, I said I loved animals, and I've all acutely been aware of their suffering and how they feel. Hated hunters growing up, but I don't feel that way anymore. I just know that that's how I mean, everybody has, it's a spectrum. I don't think anybody should torture animals, but we are animal kingdom. Anyways, that's another discussion. I've changed a lot. But the next night, this was all in like a week span, I had another dream. And the second dream, I was in my childhood home, the one that I had seen my UFO at and read Whitley Strieber's book. So, I'm a grown married woman, and I'm now having this dream, and it's like I'm back in my house, and it's night. And I walk out to the kitchen, and in real life, our back door led down a series of steps, and then into our garage, and then our washroom was detached. And so my dad, for some reason, I don't know, he never fixed the lock on the door. And, growing up in the 70s and 80s, we didn't even lock our doors at night. Like, it was a safe world. We didn't have security systems, it was crazy to think about that, but that's how it was. But for some reason, I'm walking in my dream at night to the door with this impending, fear of, I got to get to the door to lock the door, before thought ends, because right in front of me, because the door in real life had the window panes at the top half, and then the solid wood on the bottom. in the door, on the step outside of the door, on the other side of the door, is about a 5 to 6 foot raccoon bipedal. And behind him is this huge grizzly bear. They're standing there side by side, a raccoon and a bear. And they go, ha, you thought you're gonna lock it, like, and I was like, trying to lock it. And the raccoon looks at me and is like, we're gonna get you, we're gonna get you, I'm gonna get you. There's nothing holding this door, this door doesn't mean anything just because it's closed. And in my dream, I'm like, and I just was so fed up and mad. I just like growled with all of the power that I could muster back at this raccoon. And this is so weird. The raccoon turns and looks over his shoulder at the grizzly bear, and he's like, get a load of this. She's fighting back. And then I'm running to the back bedroom, trying to because I realized my dad always left one window in his bedroom open. It didn't matter what freaking degrees it was. He had to have some fresh air flowing. And I was like, I gotta get to that window to lock it. And as soon as I got there, they were like, we're here. And I woke up. Yeah.
Sounds like a screen image, though.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that both of them were, just because the eyes, the deer was like the most invasive probe. It really was. It was a reflection of things that nobody wants to see about themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a couple nights later, wasn't the very next night, but a couple nights later, the third dream happened. And this was very different. There were no animals in this one. This goes down as one of the scariest, most terrifying dreams I have ever had. And it involved me suddenly finding myself in a dark tunnel. It looked like I was underground. I don't know where the heck I was. I just know it was nighttime. It was a dark black tunnel. And I'm staring down this dark tunnel. And at the end of the tunnel, I guess is an opening, maybe to the outside. And I see these 3 lights. They're blue. And they're, to me, in my mind, in this dream, I know they're not just any lights. They're disembodied beings, grays, whatever. And they're telepathically talking to me as a collective, and they're saying, you're just a horrible person. You're a piece of shit. You don't deserve to live. You should just kill yourself right now. You deserve it. You don't deserve to live. You're not any good. The world doesn't need you, so just do it. Do it. And in my hand, I had a gun. I had a handgun in my right hand. And I am sobbing in this dream. Obviously, I was sobbing in real life, while I'm dreaming. I was just racked with just grief. And I pulled my hand up to my temple and I pulled the trigger. And I woke up. I had leaped out of bed. I had started running down the hallway because I didn't know whether I was dead or alive at that point. I thought I had really died. Yeah, it was, I remember I ran to my husband and I just said, hold me, please hold me. Am I alive? Just please. And he's like, yeah, you just had a bad dream. I couldn't even tell him. I was so shocked and so, listen, I didn't even own a gun. I had never owned or really even held a gun, much less a BB gun. I mean, it was very intense, and it was very traumatic, because to me, it's like something wanted me to die. Between all of this negative feedback about me being, I can't save this deer, I can't save myself from this raccoon, I can't deny what these three grays are telling me, I need to do. It just, it was just a really low point in my life. And at that same time, I was still having, the fear. I didn't see the shadows whipping around the ceilings at that time, but I did have something where I was in my bedroom at night and I heard two voices, a man and a woman talking, and it was so weird because I'm like, is someone right outside my window? No, they can't be. And I was like straining to listen, and it sounded like it was Russian, but I knew it wasn't Russian. It was like some other language, but it was like they were right beside me having a conversation, and I was so perplexed. I'm like, so after that third dream, this is all in October, the UFO sighting, the 3 dreams in 1 week. I decided that I was just gonna die. And I was like, either I can talk to someone or I can just die of a heart attack, because that's how it felt. I felt like my heart was gonna give out because I was so exhausted. I was so sleep deprived because I couldn't sleep. I wouldn't sleep. I didn't feel safe sleeping. I would try and sleep during the day, but then I had this child and all these appointments to go to. So I was just a freaking mess. It was horrible. And then my husband was saying, that I was just really losing it. I just saw his disappointment and his fear in me, and I'm feared myself. I just want him to protect me and save me and believe me. And it was the hardest point in my life, really. And so fast forward to November, I started saying to myself, something inside me said, okay, if this isn't some kind of karmic debt, if this isn't some kind of demon, because I hated them. I just wanted them to leave me alone. I wanted my life back. I wanted my marriage back. I just wanted to be my kid's mother. I didn't want this anymore. I didn't know why it was happening. And all I was begging for was just, please tell me why. Please leave me alone. Please make this stop. Who do you tell? Do you tell your parents? Your husband doesn't even believe you. I was falling apart, and I looked at my son and I thought, my God, pull your shit together for your son, because you've got to be strong. If you're not here to protect him, they're going to get him. And I was like, oh my God, they are coming for him. I bet they're coming for him. And it dawned on me that they were doing so much to me that they were probably coming for him too. And I felt trillion times more anger, trillion times more fear, just absolute helplessness and vulnerable, just so hunted. I went online and I found Whitley Strieber, and I found his website. And in desperation, I started joining the message boards, and I started writing out my experiences, begging for someone to tell me what this was. And guess what? I got so much feedback. I got so many friends, people I didn't know, comforting me, telling me that I wasn't alone, that yes, this had happened to them, if not the same, very similar, that there wasn't anything I was doing wrong. I wasn't, being punished for something. That in fact, that maybe I need to realize that I was chosen, and maybe this had been in my life all along. And that sentence, when I read that, I was like, what? And then all of a sudden, things started coming to me, and I started thinking about my childhood, and I'm like, okay, well, whoa, why me? Why not me? Of course, they must read my energy signature from afar. I mean, I'm an emotional basket case when it comes to the earth and animals and empath. Either I'm really good food or I'm something special to them, I don't know, but it's something. And I started seeing all the little things that happened in my life. And I realized, oh my God, this isn't anything freaking new. This has just been happening. And I've either compartmentalized it or I've forgotten or both. And you know what, Mother? If you want me, come and get me. Okay, because I'm tired of your bullshit. I'm going to be sleeping in that back bedroom, and you leave my son out of this. And if you want me, come and get me. And better yet, make yourselves be known in the day, because I'm not playing this dark shit anymore at night. We're going to do this in the daylight where I can see you. I'm here. Come and get me. Meet me face to face. I challenged them. And then what happened was so weird. It was like I started tripping on acid. And some of your viewers may not know what that's like, but everything had meaning, everything had a purpose. It was a beautiful awakening of seeing the earth in its innocence and its purity, and seeing how everything is symbiotic and connected, and nothing is separate. And it's like it was a Kundalini experience. I started seeing like dew on everything, like this little and I wasn't on anything. I mean, I only drank coffee. I wasn't even drinking wine. It was like everything with new eyes. The world was beautiful. I saw nature. I felt everything, the little squirrels, in their habitat, and just frogs, just everything became so precious and new to me. And at the same time as that feeling, it lasted for 2 weeks. It was like I was tripping for 2 weeks, high on just the beauty of this earth and everything that we are connected to. And I thought, I felt them. Yay, she got it.
About
She's
time.
passed.
Yeah.
I felt them. I felt them. I felt them feel that and be proud of me, because I knew that I had a room of fire, and the only way I was going to make it as my son's mother was to walk through it and get to the other side of that door. And I was bound into, you know what, all I can do, I remember saying, I said, the only thing that can happen is I will die, and nobody ever dies. So guess what? If I do die, you can't have my soul, because I am me and I am my soul, and you can do whatever you want to my body. You can terrorize me all you want. You can keep this shit up. But guess what? Nobody is ever going to take my soul. And that's how I got through.
Wow.
And things changed.
That reminds me of an event a friend of mine had when he was around 6. He woke up at night. No, he was no, he was an adult. He was sleeping in his sister's bedroom because he was sleeping at her place. She wasn't back yet. She was on a trip. I think she was arriving like the next day after, but he decided to sleep in her room. And he woke up at night and he was like levitating maybe a foot or two off the bed. And he hears this voice say, I want your soul. And he was so pissed off. And he told him to to back off and like F off. And he swore so much. And he eventually fell back to the bed.
So it worked.
Yeah. So yeah, emotions do help.
I believe it. And yet what's so strange about that, Ian, is that it felt like they were demons, but then I'm feeling it, I'm seeing these entities. I'm having these dreams of UFOs I've never had before in my life. I'm having these dreams of animals that are out to get me, and the grays that are telling me to blow my brains out. Are they the same? Are they one and the same? Are these, like, who am I working with here?
Yeah.
It was really confusing. So when I put my foot down and I said, I am not going to be a prisoner of fear anymore. Fuck all of this. This is not life. And I'm going to be the best mom that I can for my son because he needs me. No one is going to love him the way I am. And he needs me right now. So everything changed. I told you the Kundalini lasted for 2 weeks. I felt them proud and congratulatory and just like, yes, she got it. She made it through. So I became at that point love and light. All aliens are great, aren't they? Our saviors, maybe some
Yeah.
of you can relate where you go through, there are no bad aliens. There are no bad, grays. There's some of, they're just on a different level and we don't understand. Well, I started sleeping in a different room because I held my promise. If they were going to want to do this to me, I wanted them to see that I was going to face them head on. And that was the warrior moment for me. November came, and I'm actually coming up on 14 years of my telepathic encounter. November 16th will be 14 years. So this is a special month for me. So November 16th, the weekend, 2008, my son and his father were planning on going out of town to visit some relatives for a birthday party. And I had had 3 or 4 months of hell. And I had come to a place where I was beginning to feel peace. And I had never been without my son. I'd never been one night without him. He was 4 years old, 4.5. So I said, why don't you and daddy, daddy, why don't you take our son and go out of town by yourselves and come back? Because it was only like 5 hours away. So this would have been my first night alone, as a new mom. 4 years, I've never been alone. So I was looking forward to it. And at this point, I wasn't afraid. My husband had just bought a new Sony digital camera. They had just come out around that time. And they had the screens that would pop out, and you could sort of see, I think like they were dual. They were picture, it was camera, but it video too. Well, he took that with him out of town. And never mind, it was fine. I wasn't thinking anything. I was in a state of bliss because it was fall. I was in a good place mentally. I had worked through the shit and this fear, and it had abated, and it seemed to have lifted, and I felt supported. I felt supported by them. Like whatever I was doing was right. Okay, so I'm not going to be scared. I mean, yeah, I was still a little scared, but I felt good. Like I can handle this. I've gotten through all that. I can handle anything else they throw at me. So they went out of town. They left on a Saturday morning. That Saturday night, I went to Barnes and Nobles. I looked at books. I came home. I had some tea. I stayed up till about 11. And the fear I had was, gosh, I got to make sure that door's locked because I really don't want any burglars. I was worried about people. Being alone, not having my husband there that night. Well, 5 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, November 16th, I hear this loud bang. And my puppy that I had gotten, the one with the little bow on, he was now 16 years old. So he'd been with me through everything. My little angel, Chester. And Chester had lost his sight, his hearing. He was in pretty much a hospice state. And I had to keep him in the bathroom on a bed, on a big fluffy bed, so that if he had an accident in the middle of the night, he didn't go out through the whole house and do it. I could just clean it up in that little area. So at 5 o'clock, when I hear this bang, I'm thinking, oh, I got to get up because Chester ran into the wall and I need to pick him up and take him outside. So I go to the bathroom and I flip on the bathroom light and I look, And my dog Chester, and I had another dog, Tally, she was my Pekingese, they were curled up together, asleep, snoring on a little dog bed together. And I thought, oh my God, that's so weird. Well, what time is it? Didn't have a clock. I was sleeping in the guest bedroom that night. So I walk to the microwave in the kitchen and I look and I see it says 5 o'clock in the morning. And here where I'm at in Eastern time zone, it's pitch dark at 5 a.m. around this time. And I was like, I guess I'll just walk to the front door window and look out. I don't know why. I just, sometimes you do that when you wake up in the middle of the night. You just walk outside and take a look at the stars. But I was just going to walk to the window and just look out. So I walk to the window and I look out of the panel and I see the beautiful sky. It's dark with stars. And above my neighbor across the street's house, it's like a pink stucco 2-story house, is a round, glowing orange orb. It was beautiful. It was moving. It looked like lava inside that was swirling and moving. And it's so weird because when I was looking at it, like one side would come closer and then this other side would go back, and then it was sort of like moving forward and receding at the same time. It was really strange. But I'm looking at this and I'm like, oh my God, what am I looking at here? This isn't the sun. The sun isn't even up. The sun hasn't even risen. That's not a planet. That's, oh my God, that's a UFO. Oh, I can go tell Dave, my husband, that Dave's not here. It sounds like Cheech and Chong. Dave's not here. No, Dave isn't there. No husband to go wake up and give him the evidence that he really needed. I'll go get the camera. Oh, can't get that camera. Dang it. He took it with him. I'll go tell my neighbor, the cop next door. God, I can't do that. He'll think I'm nuts because by the time I get over there, it'll be gone and he'll say, you're absolutely batshit, lady. I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, okay, I'm now scared. I'm not liking this. I'm alone. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here alone. All of a sudden, I felt myself slow down, like I had been shot with a tranquilizer. It felt like when you're coming, like it's almost like you're paralyzed where you can't really move. And I even felt my brain and my words and my thoughts kind of slow down. It was so weird. A thought, not my thought, but I heard a thought come into my head that said, don't be afraid. We come in peace. We, not I, we come in peace. We mean you no harm. And I'm like, yeah, right. I don't believe you. You can sit there and say whatever you want to say to me, but I don't believe you at all. But what am I going to do? I have no power here. You have all the power. So I guess I have to take your word for it. We love you. We have always loved you.
Imagine that.
And I say, well, okay. And I drop to my knees and I crawl backwards down the hall, hoping that it doesn't see me. Of course it sees me. But I'm trying. I mean, I drop down on my knees and crawl backwards like the exorcist. Into the bedroom. And it's dark. And I swear to God, I felt like I saw something standing there right outside the closet, like a shape, like a human shape, and then blacked out. So that was 5 o'clock in the morning, because remember, I had gone to the microwave and I drew a picture of it for the viewers to see, me standing out looking at the orb. And 10 o'clock, 10:30 on a Sunday morning. I wake up and it was beautiful, cold, sunny, gorgeous fall day. And man, did I feel bad. I felt like death. I felt like I was coming down with the flu. I felt achy, nauseous, like I had the stomach bug and the cold flu bug, coughing. Just felt I had a fever. And I'm like, okay, well, you've got to go run. This is your chance to have your whole weekend to yourself. That, they're going to come back later on tonight. So just get out there. I'm sure a run will make you feel better. So I go do my 10-mile run. And I get home. I don't remember a thing. I didn't remember a thing when I woke up. My husband comes home. You would think that the first thing that I would do when I saw him pull up with my son is, oh my God, guess what happened? This thing came and you weren't here and you could have seen it. I could have, what are the odds that this occurs on the one night in 4 years that I'm home alone ever? You think? Little synchronicity there, a little intentional manipulation of time. So I didn't remember. And then Wednesday night, I'm chopping up vegetables for dinner. And all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. Boom, it just floods back into my mind. And I am sick. I am scared. I am mortified. I'm like, God, no, please. I thought I was in a good place. I thought this was ending. I thought this was stopping. I thought, what the hell happened? And I had contacted MUFON and I had written up a report. I had submitted it online. And I spoke with this guy who was like the regional director. I won't mention his name. Jerk. I felt like he wanted my information big time, but he didn't want to offer any kind of, I was like, I don't handle that, ma'am. I don't know who to direct you to for counseling. I don't know. You're going to have to figure that out on your own. He was rude. He was nasty. I don't know how I got in touch with Denise Stoner, but somehow I did. He may have given her my number because I was desperate. I thought maybe someone else here had seen it because it was so bright and big. And, like I said, it had this telepathic exchange with it. But she's like, oh, you're being abducted. This is clear, classic, abduction. You had the missing time. You have a son, you have a son. Has he been saying, I'm like, yeah. She's like, oh, I hate to tell you this, but they're taking him too. And I'm just like, oh God, no. So I don't know, Jan. I just somehow I worked through it. I was already in contact with other experiencers, contactees, abductees. It was just one more kind of log to put on the fire. I guess I just thought this was going to just be a regular part of my life. It was hard. It was hard in the daytime still. It was hard to juggle. You're operating on such a profoundly deep level with this stuff, with contact. And then you have to hold a day job. You have to hold a relationship that's surface level bullshit, Yeah. How do you do that?
Well, I usually tell my girlfriend, well, of course we're living like two lives, the experiencer and the what I call the muggle life. But I always say it's an in-house joke, really. I put my mask on. When I come home, I take my mask off. So we show them the face that they want to see. Then when we're back home with our own people, we take the mask off. But yeah, that's how I dealt with it because when I started talking about my own stuff, I really got a lot of backlash. So yeah.
Well, at this time, going over my notes here, gone through the dreams. It was now December 3rd or 5th of 2008. So it's same year. And something really interesting happened. right after the orb. I was sleeping one night and this was not a dream. Oh, and I have something that I completely skipped over and I didn't mean to, but I'll go back after I tell you this. In December, early December, December 3rd, I think it was a Saturday. It may have been the 5th. If you look on the calendar, I'm not sure. It was the first Saturday in December of 2008. Anyways, I woke up in my bedroom to a blue beam of light. Now, the weirdest thing about this is that I didn't have anything blue anywhere in my room, nor did I have, now we had a motion sensor light right outside the bedroom on the corner of the house. We have a brick house. So there was a white, bright, like spotlight that was on the corner of the house, and it was motion sensor, but it's white. And it's not pointed inside, duh. It's pointed outside into the yard. So this beam of light was coming in it defied all logic. It was coming in at an angle, the top corner of the right side of the sliding glass window, through levolor blinds. They're long vertical blinds that you can turn with the little knob to open, and you can pull all the way back. They're the big fat vertical blinds, curtains, blinds. So this blue beam of light is coming in from the top of the corner at a weird angle through closed blinds, and it's not broken. It's a solid beam. It looked like a laser. And I wake up to this and I'm like, and I was on my stomach, and I raise up and I turn around and I'm looking at this to my left, and I'm like, oh my God, they're here. This is really happening, and I am seeing this. And you know what? I am not going to forget this. I am not going to, boom. I got pushed down into the bed, knocked out. I remember feeling myself. I knew something was behind me at the foot of the bed. It was probably them. I never saw them, but I'm pretty sure it was. They funny as hell. And I said, I'm not going to forget this. And I woke up the next morning and I remembered. And I was so happy because I was like, yes, I didn't forget, And it was like, yeah, okay, so I have all the proof I need. I know what it is. I don't know why. I still don't know why, but it is what it is. And I'm not alone there, because there's other people out there that are having this. So, okay, it's all right. And then the next thing I think that happened was significant was I was seeing various craft during the day in my neighborhood. I talked about the white plate that I saw with my son. The next thing I would see is I'd be out on a run during the day, and I got this feeling. I don't know if anyone can relate to this. I got this weird feeling that I was going to be snatched out of, just like someone would just stop time, like they had the ability to just stop time and pull you out of where you were. And I just had this fear, like, God, if I go for a run, I'm outside. I had a bit of agoraphobia. I was feeling afraid. Another thing I had felt at that time was feeling that that somehow the earth would lose gravity and I would just go out and they would get me. I know it's kind of crazy, but that's how I felt. But when I would run, I swear, the minute I would look up from where my feet, where I was running on the road up into the sky, I would see a craft. And the first time this happened in the daytime when I was out on a run, I saw a solid metallic sphere that was beautiful. It would look solid as could be. It was small, it was stationary, and it just hung there in the sky. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? And as I'm running, I'm coming up on the mailman. He's distributing mail into the mailboxes on the street. And I'm like, I'm going to go knock on his window and say, hey, do you see that? Like, a voice said to me, no, they're not going to see it. They're going to think you're absolutely batshit crazy. You can't tell anybody about this. So there's just that weird feeling. The next ship that I saw that was really interesting was something I called the jellyfish UFO. And I saw this UFO again on another run. This would have been January of 2009 now. So we had gotten through December and all of that. And I still forgot to tell you about the ear implant, but you can prompt me and ask me about implants and I'll talk to you about that. The jellyfish UFO was something I saw bobbing in the sky, like around the clouds. And at first I just thought it was a plane, mirage, sun. I said to it in my mind as I'm running, I'm like, well, if you are what I think you are, meet me back at my house in 30 minutes because my run will take me, I'll be home in 30 minutes on this run. And guess what? It was there.
Oh,
It was right where the picture that I have for the viewers, where I'm looking out the window at the house across the street with the orange orb. It had bobbed itself right down on my street. It had followed me home just like I had asked it to. And it was beautiful. The reason why I call it jellyfish is because it's iridescent and it looks like the shape of a jellyfish, the saucer shape, but it had all this interesting like color inside that was glowing. It was like purple, blue, green, pink. I don't know. And it bobbed. It wasn't like fast. It wasn't like the green star. It was nothing like anything I'd seen. So I just called it the jellyfish. And then somehow I found a YouTube channel. His name is Ace Brian Fox, who had filmed this craft or one just like it years earlier before I even knew or saw this thing. And this is exactly what I saw. And the best part is this guy had filmed this in Tallahassee, where I live. So, I mean, or this guy had filmed this in the same town where I live. Yeah. I just, I couldn't believe it. And in this video, you could hear helicopter. You could hear this genuine guy, a husband and wife, filming this object. They knew it wasn't a plane, and then all of a sudden you hear helicopters, big helicopters, not medical helicopter. Well, not like hospital, like military helicopters, getting close to this thing. So yeah, that was one craft. January was a good month for me. I didn't know why I was seeing all this various craft in the sky. I felt like things had tamed down. I had a friend that was really suggesting I start meditating and trying to contact them in this way, because she said that this is sort of their energy wave we can get ourselves on, because we can our whatever. She said that our energy is very sticky and uncomfortable for them, just like theirs is uncomfortable for us. And so I guess maybe meditation is more of a neutral ground, more of a level communicating field. So I tried to do it one time, and I mean within minutes I see in my mind, it was like black and gray and green. All of a sudden, I see this figure come in and sort of peek around the corner, these two big eyes. And I was like, whoop, that's all. I don't think I need to do this. So I started seeing that they were around, they were receptive. I went through with my relationship. This experience really ended my marriage. And this is a subject that I don't know if many experiencers, abductees, or contactees talk about, but the only person that I had ever read that it felt like it was my story was Lisette Larkins. She's an author, and she wrote a book called Talking to Extraterrestrials. And Lisette basically was voicing what I was going through with my marriage. And it was a very hard time. A little bit of something else entered this experience, and that is something that maybe your viewers might know about, called alien love bite, where you feel a connection and a deep pull, both a physical, emotional, a sexual attraction towards other experiencers. And I had this big time with a couple of different guys. And to be fair, I wasn't being honest. I wasn't being honest at all. Um, and I regret that. But at the same time, I know I was really seeking my partner, my male, yin yang. I was really seeking the balance in a relationship, and my soulmate, my twin flame. I needed that. And the only person I knew that was going to give that to me was another experiencer. And so at the end of 2011, 2009 and 10, I knew that my marriage was over. And I was devastated, but I felt like the Greys, they set this in motion, that they were the ones that said to me, not that I couldn't have stayed in my marriage, but I really felt like they pushed me to the precipice of this point in my life that said, you are not living your full potential. You are not living, you still have a mission or whatever, you still have a path that you're nowhere near. And if you keep on this path that you're on, you will have a life less lived. And I really thank them, because to me, it is a gift, and was a gift, and still is a gift, for all the trauma and all the terror. If I had not gone through that, I would not be where I am today. And I'm so proud of myself for getting through that. And I'm not perfect. I'm not even really so much involved in the ET world like I was during those years, but I still am. But I've moved on to different things, and I'm changing too. I'm on my own path, but I really give that experience of this contact with them the credit for changing, for me, helping me change the course of my life.
Yeah. Well, regarding the Love Bite book, yeah, I've had something similar happen to me. I won't get into detail, but yeah, it is powerful, and I do get the feeling that they do try to do matchmaking. They do try to be a cupid of sorts, and
It's
put
painful.
yeah,
It's
put
painful.
people together. Coming back to the UFOs, did you get were you able to gauge their size? 'Cause mine were about 10 feet wide, so just wondering.
No, I'm not really okay. Like, I'm horrible at math. I'm deficit, like, when it comes to spatial, and but I think the smallest one for me was the green star, the first UFO that I saw as a teenager. It literally looked a little bit bigger than the brightest star that you could see in the sky. But then again, it was green, and it was a solid green. It wasn't blinking. Didn't have red or white or blue lights. It was a solid star. That's why I call it the star UFO. And then the maneuvers that it did, so it was around the same size as, like, the biggest and brightest star that you could see. The dinner plate UFO was definitely probably the largest that I've seen. Um, I was in the car driving, and I think it looked a bigger, like a silver dollar size. If you were to hold up a silver dollar, and I don't know if you know what a U.S. Sorry, you're
Yeah.
not, but a U.S. Silver dollar is about that big.
Okay.
The metallic sphere was very small, but it was very bright, and it was so strange to see this round, hard object just watching, stationary, just in the sky. Um, and then, of course, the orb, I thought, well, it could be a planet, but it's way bigger than a planet, and it's way smaller than the sun, and the sun isn't even up. So I would say it was like oh, I don't know. Are they kumquat size? Something that's orange and round,
Yeah.
or a little permission, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
If you were to hold it up.
Yeah, the object was still far away, so it
Yeah,
wasn't.
no, it wasn't anything up close. I mean, I haven't had anything like that. I think I would probably faint. But the the point I want to make is that, you know, I never really wanted to hurt anyone, and I really think that I learned a lot about myself through this experience. I learned, you know, that I can be strong, that it's okay to change, and it's really okay to live your truth. And truth is different for everybody. I had to break out of a lot of negativity and a lot of gossip. Um, my encounters and experiences were used against me in divorce,
Oh,
and it was scary to think that, you know, you could lose your child because someone that you used to love claims that you're crazy and you talk to aliens and UFOs, and your child shouldn't be with them because they're not right in the head. So it's still very much a stigma that, you know, we live with. But I really don't care anymore, because the way I look at it is all I am saying and sharing today happened to me. And it's okay if you don't believe it. It's okay. It's a lot, you know. And I have a hard time believing that it all happened. And I mean, I know it happened, but it still boggles my mind that it happened. And the weirdest thing is that it stopped happening. And I think that that was another traumatic thing. It was the loss of a loved one. And about 2011, I met my current husband. We met, and I kind of grilled him. We were just friends, and I'm like, "How do you feel about factory farming? What do you know about it? What do you think about animals? And, you know, what about UFOs and aliens? What do you think?" You know, because I knew that I didn't care. Nobody I date is gonna make fun of me or not believe me. I've got to have support. And he passed all the markers, and we went on to see UFOs together. And so that's been really cool, to have that shared experience. And he has had his own sightings, and that is really, really cool. It's just, it makes a big difference in your life when you're supported by someone
yeah.
with this stuff. Um, in January, February, a bizarre thing happened. I had the neighbor with the house, the orange, like pink house where the orange orb was. She decided to put her house up for rent, and one of the first tenants to move in was a Department of State employee. And this gentleman he just left Africa, so his Viete said, and came to my town to recruit college students into the Department of State government. And it was a diplomat in residence, an ambassador in training. So weirdly enough, this house where my whole like world changed, you know, with this encounter with this orb, that house goes up for rent just like less than 6 months later. And this guy, this spook, is renting there for a year. And I started getting paranoid. I called up my father and I said, "Dad, should I be concerned that you know, this guy is renting?" And he's like, "Don't pay any mind to it." He's like, "Yeah," he's like, just go about your business, do your thing, you know, just don't worry about it." I've had several of them. I'm like, "What?" "What? Come again?" He's like, "Yes, your mom and my parents have lived in that house, not my childhood home, but they moved in 1997. And in their neighborhood, the house next door to them became rent. Now, this is not a small neighborhood. This is, 3,000-4,000 square foot homes. They're not just your average college renter. And I'm like, what do you mean you've had this next door to you? They said, well, we've had FBI and CIA employees renting, living next door. And I'm like, do you think they're there to check on you? And he's like, well, I probably. So, and I'm like, well, then, so, because I had told him about during all of this, I had talked to my father, the naval intelligence officer, about what was going on, and he would never, he would talk to me about it, but he would never offer any insight as to what, where, why this is happening. And, a long time ago when I was little, I was like, what is it that you do? What is it that you do? Please. And he's like, I can't, it's, I can go to jail for disclosing, but maybe one day when I retire from the military, I can talk to you about it. Well, that day came and went, and he retired, and he went to get his debriefing, and he was supposed to be gone for 2 weeks. And the first and only time in his career, his naval career, that he told me he wasn't looking forward to going out of town was right before that. He's like, I'm not looking forward to this. And I'm like, really? You always like going out of town for work? And I get a phone call the day he's supposed to come home. And he's like, I'm not coming home. They always flew him on a private plane back home. And he says, I'm not coming home. I had an accident and slipped in the shower and hit my head. I'm in the hospital. Really? So my dad has never disclosed what really happened. I don't think that he slipped and fell in the shower. I think he was probably being wiped for what he knew and he refused. It's almost like he became a different person. He's had memory loss, and he's like, I don't remember. I don't remember. And I really think he's telling the truth. Like, he does not remember his lifelong career of being in the intelligence. So back to this guy, this spook across the street. He just said, keep your head forward and just mind your own business. Well, I was pissed, because it's like, gosh dang it. Because I had been pretty vocal on, Whitley's, the message board, and I wasn't exactly quiet about my seeking and trying to connect with other people and everything. And I felt like, well, gosh, I guess I've garnered attention, but whatever, he moved, and that was the end of that. But I do feel like they know. I did befriend Kim Carlsberg, and she's a wonderful, wonderful human being. And she was a really big part of my life during all of this. Actually, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention her, but she was one of the first people that really helped me during, the 2008 period. And even someone as seasoned and, as her, it doesn't help you, I mean, it helps, but it doesn't help the fear and all the crap that you have to, all the exhaustion and the terror. You have to get through it. And so I would say to people out there who may be still going through this and having this point, it will get better. It does get better. Just have faith and hold on to your soul, know who you are, stand in your right. And if you've got kids, bless them, bless you for being a parent, and be there for them because they need you and you're special. I mean, I really think that. I think that those of us who are having this are special. When the activity slowed down and really stopped, I thought, okay, maybe they're just going to come back, and I need a break. So it was March of 2008, and we decided to take our son for the first time to Walt Disney. I don't care about Walt Disney now, but at the time, it's something that you try and do for kids. And I'm like, yes, I'm going out of town. There's not going to be any problem. Well, guess what? They came. They came and I felt them in the hotel room, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, can you just leave? Let me have this, let me take this whole thing off my mind now and not worry about it anymore. And it just didn't happen. So I started really moving towards my relationship with my husband, and eventually divorced, and that was really hard. And that's when I felt just absolute silence on the other end of the line with these guys, with the Greys. I didn't know what I had done. I thought, is it because I divorced? Is it like I I didn't know. Like, I was living free. I was doing things. I was camping. I was going outdoors. I was hiking. I was traveling. I was having the time of my life, living. And I thought, wait a minute. I thought this is what I need to be doing for myself. And now you're gone. And I started drinking. Again, I started drinking heavily. I mean, anything to try and just dull the emptiness, the abandonment that I felt from not having them. And that's so strange, considering all of the absolute torturous terror that I went through. It's like, why would you want that again? And if you don't want that again, you want them again. You want to know that they're there and they love you and they still care about you and they're still with you.
I know. It feels like a punishment, though, the fact that they're not there anymore. Could you? When did the your son actually did he did a drawing of of him being in a UFO? When did that happen?
That was during the last few months of my marriage to his father. We had gone up for our annual summer vacation up north. And again, this was 2010. Yeah. This was 2010, summer of 2010. And I thought, this is great. Because I was in my all is light, they're wonderful, love and light, they're only good, ETs. And it wasn't even 2012. See, I thought, this is another thing I really want to impart. I thought, of course they're coming in 2008, because look what's just around the corner. It's 2012. They're getting me to get my shit straight and get in gear, because I got to be ready for this. Like, I bought and I was sold on the whole thing, right? You too? Yeah. It seemed like it was really happening. And honestly, it felt like we were on a path and a timeline that was positive, that was charged and energetic and beautiful and amazing. And like, something happened and we're not on that. We got derailed on 2012. We got derailed and we were headed towards a great place. Anyways, the drawing that my son made was in the summer of 2010. We were on vacation up north and we were at his grandparents' house, overnight, because we always stay there for 2 weeks. And he woke up one morning. We were on our way to go see some cars and trains. And he goes, Mommy, I had a dream last night that I was in a UFO. And I said, oh my gosh, tell me about it. And he was in the car, because I was sitting in the front seat. My husband was driving. He was sitting in the car seat behind me, and he had an Etch-a-Sketch that he brought on the plane with him on the trip. And he's drawing it when he's talking to me and telling me about it. And he goes, yeah. I wanted to fly the ship, and so they let me. And there wasn't any there. I had to push buttons to get, to fly it. It didn't have a wheel, even though he drew it. I think he drew it with a wheel. But he's like, it was amazing. And I said, well, what did you see? And he goes, I went by all the planets and I saw all the stars. And I'm like, yeah. I said, you know what? That's not fair. You got to fly their ship. I said, can you do me a favor? He goes, yeah. He goes, I said, will you come get me next time? He goes, okay.
So cute.
Yeah. So the other thing about my son is he's definitely in contact with them. And I figured that out. I figured that out when I wasn't sleeping at night in that fall of 2008. But he had this dream where he says, "Mommy, what is cancer?" And I said, "Oh, cancer is when you're sick and you know, sometimes you live and sometimes you don't." I said, "Why are you asking?" And he says, "Well, last night in my dream, I was playing with this little boy, and he looked funny. He didn't have any hair, and he was very." I said, "Well, what was he, white and black?" And he was white. He was really white, and he was very, very sick. And he didn't have hair, so I thought maybe he had cancer. And I'm like, "Oh." And I said, "Well, what did you play?" He goes, "Well, I wanted to play with him, but he was too sick to play." Um,
Hmm.
I know. And I don't know. He told me when I asked him about it, probably when he was about 8. I said, "Well, what do you think? You ever think about this? Have you ever heard, Mommy?" He goes, "Yeah." He says, "Listen, I'm not afraid." He goes, "I'm not afraid of them." He says, I think that they are us in the future, and I think they're dying.
Yeah.
And I think they come back for help so that they don't disappear forever. That's what he said. Now, the other thing about my son is he went through his own period from about 7 to 10 of extreme fear at night. He said, "Mommy, something is watching me through the window. Something is watching me while I sleep. Will you please sleep with me? Mommy, don't leave." So I would have to lay in the bed. Like, I felt bad doing it. Sometimes I did sleep with them, and people are like, "Oh, you sleep with your kid." Look, when you've been through what we've been through, I don't care what you say. I'm gonna be that parent that's there for my kid. Okay, when they need me and they're afraid and they're telling me something is watching them and
Yeah.
is in the room with them at night, I believe my son, and you should too. You should believe your child when they tell you that, because it's usually true. So he said, "Mom, I don't know what it is, but it's always watching me at night." And I'm like, "Oh my God." Because I was remarried, I had divorced his father, and I didn't think anything, but then I thought, "Oh yeah, he's obviously in their program, and it's his turn now. Maybe the torch is being
Yeah.
maybe that's why it stopped with me, is because maybe they weren't interested, or maybe they're done being interested with me, and now it's all, him." And so, but we got through that. Thank God, we got through that. I got a big dog, and I would let him sleep with him at night, and we would throw salt around the room. I said, "Well, this is supposed to help,
Yeah.
and just, be there for him and comfort him and not let him feel like I didn't believe him." Because that is an awful feeling. I was afraid of my closet. I wasn't afraid of, I may have jumped from the door to the bed like so many kids do. And that's the thing. I don't know. Do all kids do that, or just experiencers? I don't actually know. I just know I was afraid of that closet in my room as a kid.
Yeah.
And I had nosebleeds. I had horrible night nosebleeds. I would wake up,
Oh,
blood all over my pillow. Um, and I would end
okay.
up on the floor, like like I had fallen or been dropped on the floor, or my head would be where my feet should be. And I never understood why. Why am I having nosebleeds at night, and why am I on the floor?
So you wake up in the morning and you were like on opposite sides of the bed? You were
I would
switched?
my head would be where my feet,
Oh,
because
there you go.
I have slept alone in that bed, the bed that
Okay.
shook. But the bed was a old, like 1900s wrought iron bed, and it was high off the ground, off the floor. And I remember a couple times waking up on the floor, and I remember feeling dropped on the floor, and I didn't know why, because I had the whole bed to myself, you know?
Yeah.
And the
Okay. Yeah.
nosebleeds was something different too. Nobody else in the family besides my father had them.
And one might say that, the air could be dry, but again, that's a telltale sign that, they they
I'm in a
do
humid
tests with your
climate.
nose.
Yeah, no, I'm in a humid climate.
Yeah. And the fact that they brought you and they just put you in the wrong position. Yeah.
But
I-
I didn't pick up any of that
Yeah.
until I was 33 years old, when I started looking back at all the patterns of my life.
Yeah. When you start connecting the dots, it makes sense. Well, the more you know,
Yeah,
basically. You sent me an image of two blue orbs bouncing off each other.
yes. I started running with a partner um, in December of 2009. And one morning she couldn't make it. We would meet really early, like 5 o'clock in the morning, to do our runs. And she couldn't make it that morning. So I'm like, well, I'm not going to let this, stop me. So it was January of 2010, I believe. And I was running through my neighborhood. It was like a 6 mile run, and had to go down a road that cuts in the middle of a golf course, our local golf course community. And it was dark, on both sides of me. The road cuts in the middle, the golf course on the left, don't know what holes, don't know anything about golf course on the right. And all of a sudden I noticed something blue, and I look, and it's just me running. It's cold. There's no one else out. There's no one else awake, not even the paper guy. I see these round, brilliant blue, ball shaped, almost like kickballs from childhood, um, but smaller, maybe just like a little bit smaller than a kickball. Not a big kickball. Okay, maybe about like this. Okay, I see two blue orbs. They're not hitting the ground, but it's like they're bouncing, almost touching the ground. And there's two of them, and when one is up, the other one is down, as if they're moving. They're moving down the sidewalk of the golf course, because there's a sidewalk that winds all the way around the golf course. And they're bouncing and moving down this sidewalk through the golf course as if in conversation. And I was terrified. I'm like, holy cow, what the heck is that? And I was like, oh my God, please let me run past these things before they see me. They did not turn around. They did not come towards me. They were moving away from me. And I was like, man, I see weird stuff. I see weird stuff. I just kept running.
That's
It was
cool.
really cool. I'd love to find out other people, if who's seen those. I know people see orbs in their room,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're blue, but these were, it was like they were little animals.
Wow. Impressive. You wanted to talk about implants earlier.
Oh yeah. Um, Very important detail that I missed back when all of this started in the fall. By September, I think it was maybe the end of August, I had another dream that didn't feel like a dream. I actually had two. The first one, the first dream I had, so this was before my first sighting of the UFO in 2008, the dinner plate. It was before that, but it was after the dream where the formation of uh crafts, they were going to get me, and I told my son to run. And I really think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was before the 3-test Trinity dream, because I think that was sort of the climax of all the dreams. This dream, I was lying on a table in an operating room that was white. It was all white.
Yeah.
Never seen that before. And I remember nurses, and they were in white, and I was laying on a freaking surgery table, and I'm like, what am I doing here? And I don't know if I'm strapped down because I'm not moving, right? But right beside me sitting is a white man, blue eyes, gray white hair, mask over his face, cap on his head, everything's white. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, you're here for surgery, for a hearing implant. And I said, what? I don't have a hearing problem. I don't need a hearing. And he shows it to me. And it's at the end of this thing. He goes, yes, see, we're going to put this in your ear right here so you can hear better. And I'm like, wait, no. And I'm fighting this. And all of a sudden I've had anesthesia before. And when you start going out, there's nothing you can do. You can protest, whatever, you're going to be out and you know it. I felt myself going out. In the dream, I'm still dreaming. In the dream, the next thing is they put me out. Then I find myself waking up and they're calling my name, Melissa, 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 can you hear us? And their voices are digitized. And I'm like, what the hell? Oh my God, is this how I'm gonna, like, am I gonna hear like almost like a cochlear implant for someone that has complete hearing loss? That's, I think, what they hear. But it was strange. I knew this doctor was a military doctor. I just knew that. I don't know if it was a military hospital. I just remember being all white. A few weeks later, I had another dream of being in a white hospital, all white. And this is really gruesome. I was in a room and I think I was sitting on a bed and I looked down because I can't move. There's all these tubes coming. They're attached. They're in me like blood or plasma. They're all over me. I've got all these tubes and my fluids, my blood and everything is coming out and coming back in different areas. And I'm like, what is this? And I look up and I see this Black woman, this nurse, and she looks like anyone you'd see here in the South, just a really nice lady, very comfort. Like it's almost like something you bring you comfort, and just like not military, just a regular human being, And I'm like, ma'am, what is this? Please help me. What is all this? And she looked at me and it was like, she did not understand what I was saying. She didn't speak English. She couldn't understand English. She looked like she was just a regular Southerner that should completely be able to know what the heck I was asking her. But she looked at me with the weirdest look, like I was speaking Greek. And I woke up and I was like, why am I having all these dreams of hospital procedures that I don't need, So yeah, that I really think that was an implant. Before I would have a sighting, I started recognizing that I would start hearing a ringing in this ear. And when I would talk to other experiencers, I'd get the ringing. I think there's some in my leg too, because the same thing would happen. I'd be talking to an experiencer and I'd start feeling something on my left shin vibrate. I don't know. I do have a friend who has equipment, Steve Colburn. He's a close friend of mine. And he's been really nice and offered to, whenever I can make it out to see him, to scan, because I really do think they're there. Especially this, and that's just creepy. I don't like it. But same token, I've heard from Whitley how he tried to remove his and it moved and changed location. And from other people, I'm sure you've interviewed people who've said it wasn't a good idea. So I don't really know.
A lot of people, though, when they get theirs removed, they become sick.
Yeah.
So so sometimes it's put there for their benefit. You sent me a really cool drawing about 3 grays levitating.
Mm, yes, I feel like this dream that happened in 2000, here's the thing. I say dreams, I've got most of all of my contact has been through dreams. There have been real-time sightings of the UFOs, but I've never had a real-time sighting of a gray. It's always been in my dream. And that puzzled me because so many other experiencers have a clear, in your face, visceral, it's a real time interaction. And I don't necessarily have that. But nevertheless, this was something that I felt was a gift of love, a gesture of compassion. And this dream happened in 2015. It was a really hard time. I think I had mentioned I was drinking a lot to cope with the sense of loss. I was grieving. It was the death of them going away and not knowing why. So in this dream, I'm at this park that I frequent locally, and it's daytime, and there's a woman that I would see there in real life, and she was also a runner. So I would run. I don't know this woman, but I would see her running. She had blonde hair. She was older than me, probably in her 50s at the time. I think I was like 41. And so she was in my dream, and I was sitting on the bench talking to her. And I was sitting on the park bench talking to her. And off in front of me, she's to my left, off in front of me, I happen to notice this huge bipedal 6-foot white owl stomping towards me. And I'm talking to this lady, right, in my dream, and I'm like, pay no mind to the huge white owl that's coming close to you. It was like I was not supposed to see this thing,
Yeah.
right? And behind this white owl, I saw 3, 4, more than 3, maybe, grays. They were digging and picking up grass, dirt, pine straw. I don't know, something. They were picking stuff off the earth. And I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna ignore this freaking scary ass owl is like rock behind me. And I'm talking to this lady, and the next thing I know in the dream, we're in a circle, and this time she's on my left still, but on my right is this guy that I know from Facebook. And he's a black man. I met through the friend that helped me with, you need to read these books, Zachariah Sitchin, in the very beginning, my wonderful psychologist friend. Anyways, this guy is a friend of a friend's, and we don't really know each other that well, but we have this kind of connection. And so we became friends on Facebook. And he was a real brave soul, did a lot of like DMT and all sorts of stuff that I haven't done yet. I mean, I've done acid and shrooms, but he's really out there, right, in the psychonaut world, and or whatever they call it. And he's cool. I really liked him a lot. So he's on my right. This blonde woman is on my left. And then in front of us three, there's 3 grays. And we're all holding hands in a circle. And we start humming a tone, like, and we're all at the same pitch and all humming the same frequency. And we start lifting and levitating into the air. And we're going up slowly. And I open my eyes, and we're still humming. And maybe I guess I have stopped because I'm looking now. And I can see straight across from me, the gray right in front of me, this circle of colors, of energy, of plasma, of light. It was beautiful. It was swirling inside his chest. And the gray next to him had the same thing. The energy was swirling. And the gray next to him, the energy was swirling, and the woman next to me was swirling. And I look down and I see I have it too.
Oh.
And it's spinning. And then the guy next to me is spinning. And then we're still humming. And the colors, it was like pink and white and purple and yellow, just beautiful pastel energy. Heart chakra was all I could maybe think it is. But as we're humming and we're lifting, the energy is spinning faster and faster and faster, right? And so by this time, I don't know that we were holding hands. I think that's how we originally got up off the ground, was holding hands and humming. But we're humming at this point. The colors are swirling, and I look up and I think, oh my God, it's black. I mean, it's nighttime. When we started this thing, it was day. And oh my God, look how high I am up in the air at night, off the ground, up, way up in the sky. And as soon as I got scared, because I'm actually afraid of heights, as soon as I got scared, I felt myself falling, and I saw the trees rushing up towards me. And I wake up like this in my bed, and I had the biggest smile. It was the most amazing, happiest, most joyful thing I've ever had. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And I was like, okay, that really felt like a hug. That felt like, I love you. You know, we're still here. It was really wonderful. It was the best thing.
You know, some might ask, why did they do that? Why did they go through the dream state? But it's their easiest way, and it's the safest way for them. Because you know, they are afraid that, you know, something might happen to them if they do come into physical. So yeah, so that's beautiful. You also had an experience with a black ops person.
Yeah. You know, when I had told the tunnel dream, because at that time I was on the message boards during 2008. I was on Unknown Country, and I was, you know, gathering feedback from other experiencers, and I was like, hey, I had this dream. And even Whitley said to me, he goes, you know, I really think that wasn't them. I feel like that was Black Op military, that they were messing with you, that was, you know, because that just sounds so unlike them. And, you know, I don't know. I don't have any way of knowing, but that it was a psyop, or it was a he said he thought it maybe like a microwave, like a was it psychotronic attack maybe? And it could have been, because again, I was hearing crafts over the house at that time. So it was, or, you know, or when I say crafts, I mean, I thought it was helicopter hovering right over my roof. So maybe it was, you know, maybe it was, but the Black Op, I can't believe I forgot this. The Black Op experience that I had was right after I read Whitley's book when I was 16. And then 2 weeks later, after I saw the green UFO star, my first, I think a couple nights after, maybe even one night after seeing that craft, I had a dream, or I thought it was real. All of these dreams don't feel like dreams. They feel like they're real. They feel like I'm in them. That's like just typical for all of it. It just feels so real. I was laying in my bed, and I had just seen my first UFO, and my window, there was a street light in the street, so I could see sort of a shadow, like if something was, like I could see the bush outside my window. And I, at the time in my childhood home, I had floor to ceiling windows, so it was really easy to get in and out of when you wanted to, you know, sneak out. But this is horrible. I was laying in my bed, and I for some reason, something wakes me up. Oh, I heard the window opening, and I turn and look, and to my horror, I see and this was 1991. I didn't know anything about Black Op, anything, you know, military, nothing. I see this guy completely decked out. He's got the SWAT, the black mask, black hat, hoodie, cap, uh, or heavy shirt, pants. He's all black. You don't hardly even see a face. I mean, I didn't even know what color he was because he was all blacked out. But I do see the heavy artillery, the ammo on him, and the gun, this huge, probably AR-15, whatever the heck they have. I don't even know. I don't even know if it's an AR-15. It was just a heavy military grade, like, war gun. And he's opening up the window and he's like, shh, don't say a word. I'm gonna blow your effing brains out. And I shrieked. I mean, in my dream and in real life, I'm screaming. I'm screaming so loudly that my parents come running in my room, and I'm like, there's a guy outside the window. There's a guy outside the window that's going to kill me. Oh my God, help. And they're like, no, you're dreaming. You're sleepwalking. Just stop. It's okay. Go get some water in the kitchen. And the timing, I didn't have dreams like that. Like I said, my dreams were, I don't know.
Wasn't
They
the window open?
No, the window, I don't know. I don't think it was open when they came in the room.
Okay.
And that's why I say it was a dream, because they told me I was dreaming, but he was opening it up in the dream.
Yeah. Strange.
It is strange.
Yeah.
It felt strange. It felt at the time I didn't associate it with what had been going on. Nothing. But as we've discussed much later on,
Yeah.
in this decade, it all started to sort of fit a pattern.
Yeah. It's weird.
It is weird.
Yeah, well, you're not supposed to have these dreams.
No. For what? Like, what have
Yeah.
I done? Have I gone
Yeah.
out and killed someone in the middle of the night?
No.
Did I need a black op assassin to come and take me out in my bed? I don't
Well,
know.
one would suspect that you would dream something of, let's say, you went to see a movie the night prior. So you might have, dreamt
Nope.
about, like a UFO because you saw something on TV, but the fact that you didn't, and it's
No.
totally out of the context.
No. And
So,
the thing is, military was different in my household because, again, my father was intelligence. He wasn't like, army like my husband now. He actually was active duty infantry, did the guns and Iraq and all that. So it's a different section.
yeah.
He had dress that was completely different.
Okay.
Everything about his military involvement was different. But yeah, I do feel like we're put together for a reason. I feel like the people that we're drawn to for relationships, I felt like I was definitely placed in my ex-husband's life. I felt like he was placed in mine. I felt when this started happening, and after I had time to really think and try and make some coherent picture of it all, I felt like it was definitely planned. And so you do wonder with bloodlines. And my birth parents have both seen UFOs. My mother, both my birth parents are still alive. My birth father suffers from dementia and Alzheimer's, so he's not really coherent. But I am in contact with him, and of course, over the years, I did find out that he had witnessed UFO in Gulf Breeze. He used to live over in that area, in the Pensacola Beach area. And so he had a sighting then, when he lived there in the 80s. And then my birth mother, I think in this somewhere around 2004 or 5, had a sighting at night driving in the city. So both of them, and of course, my adoptive father, I don't know if I've mentioned this or not, but he had sightings as a child. And of course, he's not my blood father, but he and his brother, who were identical twins, they both witnessed a UFO where they lived. And They both were rare blood type. I think AB negative, maybe.
Okay.
So kind of weird.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it is interesting that the fact that you were put on these, the paths of these individuals and then how it shaped you over time. Yeah, your second dad became a bit like your go-to person in a sense.
Very much so. In fact, he has been supportive. He's read the books that I've acquired in my library of, all my UFO and ET. But loved reading Linda Moulton Howe's book. Just he's watched the Antarctica special. He's watched the Ancient Aliens, but he doesn't talk about it, and that's it gets me angry that it's
Yeah.
like I feel like he knows, but there's either a real block, or there's a real fear of having everything taken away from him, and they can ruin people, and they have, and they do.
Yeah.
My parents are, in their 70s, and they have a good life. I don't think that they want to jeopardize that just to let me know something.
Yeah. It's
So I have
understandable.
to live with that. Yeah.
Now we've been at this for over 2 hours. Do you have a closing statement to say to everyone?
No, I really appreciate you having me on. It's been fun.
Yeah,
And
it's been
I love your
fun.
show. You're doing a great job, and wonderful host for people to come on and feel comfortable talking to.
So nice of you.
Thank you very much.
And I really appreciate all the effort, the hard work, and the everything that you've been through. I know it's a struggle for some. So as a mother, I'm really glad you came on today, just in case somebody went through similar experiences.
Well, I do want to tell you that it's been 14 years since this, and you've gotten me to draw this stuff.
Yeah.
So you're very good, and I really thank you for pushing me, because it has been therapeutic to actually draw it, and I haven't done it before, so thanks.
Well, thank you again for coming on.
Thanks.
And to those watching, hope you enjoyed tonight's interview. I'm your host, Mr. Great. More interviews coming up, and I'll see you guys next time. So take care, everyone.
Bye.
Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Great, and thanks for watching today's episode. If you are an abductee, contactee, or experiencer, and you believe that your story could help others, please feel free to contact me through my YouTube channel email. When it comes to experiencers, the ET phenomena, and the future, remember, truth will out.